Hi, would you like to be rich? Sure, you would. But what does it mean to be rich? Duh, you probably say. It means to own a lot of assets and money and owe very little. Yes, all right. But what does ownership mean? As you'll see in my coming book, The Advanced Sleuth Investor, most people don't really understand ownership. So here goes as a foretaste of the book. Ownership has three aspects: benefit, control, and transferability of the first two. And why does this matter to you? Because without the last part, you don't really own what you think you own. And unless you know this in your bones, you are likely to get poorer, not richer, and others will get richer at your expense, like investing in Bitcoin or investing in China, which may be a giant Bitcoin waiting to implode. Is it? Here is one example. Jack Ma owned lots of shares in Alibaba, the online Chinese retailer which he founded. He was the richest man in China, or so he thought. One day, Jack made a mistake. He threw a party for all of Alibaba employees, in which he put on a woman's dress, put on a wig, sang funny songs, and basked in the adulation and adoration of his employees. So what's wrong with that? A successful boss was a party, right? Well, one thing was wrong with it. Xi Jinping saw the adulation and became deadly jealous of Jack Ma's fame. No one ever admired him. Xi Jinping grew up in a cave where his mother had to escape to while his father was being persecuted by Mao Zedong's people. Sure, now everyone feared Xi Jinping, but adulation, adoration, never. So instead of admitting to envy, Xi Jinping began to hate Jack Ma from the bottom of his heart. And then he concocted the story of malfeasance and canceled Jack Ma's voting rights in his shares. Just like that. And he also canceled Jack Ma himself and made him disappear for 6 months. And so, from the richest man in China, Mr. Ma became a poor nobody overnight, and his shares went to a government committee. What could Jack Ma do? He groveled, and lucky to be alive, now he's hiding in Japan. Well, you may naively ask, why didn't Mr. Ma sue Xi Jinping? Sue? Ha! You know the answer. There is no real court in China and no real judges, and therefore, wait for it, there is no real ownership either, and no property, no real property, because without courts that can force top politicians to obey the law like everybody else, there is no property, and all wealth is fake, temporary, and fleeting. So why am I bringing all this up? Because some innocent Western investors are now buying stocks in China, where Jack Ma's property was just cancelled, as was Mr. Ma himself. Why, even Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, has been buying Alibaba shares, even though they are definitely not shares, but in my humble opinion, no better than toilet paper, because Mr. Xi Jinping can take them away on a whim, just as he did to Jack Ma's shares. Why would you do that to Charlie Munger? Well, if Charlie said something bad about Xi Jinping or China, he would. Luckily, Charlie Munger, who is a very nice guy, says only nice things about Xi Jinping and about China. Or do you think he means them? Or he says them just out of self-defense? This I don't know. But one thing I do know is that you better not follow in Charlie's footsteps and buy any Chinese shares because you can't really own them. Not really, because ownership, as I said, is divided into three parts: benefit, control, and transferability of the first two. And so, what is ownership really? It's a sort of magic permeating civilization. Without it, all you have is barbarism. If you own a condo, it means you have the title deed to it, which is a piece of magic paper sitting in the registry office that has the magic property of moving a judge to send the bailiff or the police if anyone tried to invade your condo. This is called enforceability, also known as the rule of law. Same for everyone, top politicians too. Without it, there is no ownership. So in China, there really is none. Ownership, three aspects, have three tests. Here they are. The first test is the benefit. You can benefit from living in your condo. If someone tries to stop you from it, you call the police or file a lawsuit, and the judge will send the police. Therefore, benefiting from your property must be enforceable. Jack Ma's property was confiscated. No appeal, no enforcement. The second test of ownership is control. You can also control who else could enjoy living in it beside you. Your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or the renter you rented to. But not the homeless bum down the street who invade your condo or a government committee. If the bum tries to invade, the judge will send in the bailiff or, if necessary, the police. If the police won't come or the judge will not be moved by your title deed because he is bribed, or worse, he is scared, then you don't really own your condo. The homeless bum does, or the government. Or in the case of Jack Ma, the committee now owns it. He has no recourse. What of the third test? Transferability. That's the ability to sell the benefit and control to somebody else, who will now be able to call the bailiff to kick out the bums. But if you can send the bailiff on the first two, why would anyone else buy the condo from you? Unless, that is, he's a sucker, the kind who've been buying bitcoins too. Remember, no enforceability, no ownership, no rule of law, no property. So what about China? The simple fact is that in China, there is no ownership. It is fiction. The same, of course, goes for Russia. If Mr. Big, at the hand of a country, can take away your so-called property on a whim, whether real estate or shares, you don't really own it. And why would anyone in his right mind invest in such a place? Who knows? So you would say, what about Warren and Charlie? They are neither fools nor innocents. So why do they own things in China? Warren Buffett owns a large electric vehicle company in China, and on paper has done very well. On paper. But can he sell it? To whom? And if he does, can he take the sales money out? Ha! Also, Charlie Munger is rumored to own a big chunk of Alibaba shares because of the cash on the balance sheet and the ongoing cash generation. But the cash is fake because you cannot take it out of China. And the shares are fake too, because Xi Jinping can do to Charlie Munger what he did to Jack Ma. So in my very humble opinion, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett don't really own Chinese shares. They own fake paper. If tomorrow Xi decided he didn't like either one of them, I can't see why, they are both very nice people, still he'd take away their voting right too. Of course, Xi probably wouldn't do that, because if he screwed with Warren and Charlie, this would scare every other foreigner who invests in China. And they had tried to pull their money out too. And that would damage China and Xi Jinping's position. So if you are Warren and Charlie, you have some insurance against being shafted by Xi Jinping. But you are neither of them. So if you own Chinese shares, Xi Jinping can screw with you with impunity, just like he did to Jack Ma. Who will tell him no? A Chinese judge? Double ha. In other words, the Chinese stock market is, in my opinion, really a big roach motel. You can get in, but you can't get out, unless you find some other roach to buy your fake paper from you. The same goes for Russia. And yes, I know Jimmy Rogers, George Soros' old partner, occasionally buys shares in Russia because they are so-called cheap. But there are no real shares in Russia, just as there are no real shares in China. Because if there's no judge who can tell the president no and enforce your ownership against the ruler, you really own nothing, no matter how attractive the numbers are on the stock, on paper, and on the screen. So if you own shares in either China or Russia, you are a resident of a roach motel, kitty corner from Bitcoin Road. I'd never invest in Chinese and Russian so-called stocks, but I will look at Argentina, where I had mentioned Idonor, which has doubled, and Brazil, where I mentioned Embraer, which more than doubled, and India, where I mentioned Vedanta, who doubled as well. All are countries with the rule of law, deficient as it is, still stands. Remember the ultimate test of ownership. No enforceability, no rule of law, no wealth, and no property. Stick to this rule and you will be safe against robbers masquerading as rulers. That's all for today. Please let me know in the comments below what you think of the above. And if you like it, give it a like and subscribe. Then resend to your friends so they subscribe too. Then buy my book, The Sleuth Investor, and give it a review on Amazon, which I hope will be a good one. I'll see you next time. In the meantime, thank you very much for watching.